Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. As Church Militant continues hammering on the U.S. bishops' full-throated support for policies which undermine both the Republic and the Church, the word is really starting to get out now. Last week in D.C., we had private discussions with various people on Capitol Hill about not just the illegal immigration issue the bishops are completely down with, but also their support for the economically unsound agenda of rabid environmentalism, which is chock full of phony science and economic destruction for the nation. The claim that man changes the weather is totally unfounded scientifically, but with the Marxist control of every major institution, it's virtually accepted as scientific fact. It is not. On Tuesday, November 14th in Baltimore, Church Militant, along with our other partners in the Deposit of Faith Coalition, will be holding another press conference, just like we did in D.C. in July. This time, the topic is on challenging the phony claims about the environment. Our last press event on illegal immigration garnered more than 25 million impressions from politically conservative media outlets who attended and reported the story. And then those others who later picked up the story, including the Epoch Times, Media Research Center, and PJ Media, to name a few. Steve Bannon, as well as InfoWars, were also happy to talk about the effort of the coalition in advance. So we'd like to ask for your help in financing this important event, just like we did last time, and you came through splendidly. Thank you for that. Catholic media outlets never report on this political connection with the bishops helping to undermine the nation by supporting the Democrat communist agenda. Likewise, just as with immigration, the bishops pull down all kinds of tax money and incentives, pushing part of the Marxist agenda as well, the other part. Appearing on stage and presenting to the media, the Deposit of Faith Coalition will be Nobel laureate Dr. John Clauser, who will show why all of this is a total scam and phony science. Likewise, another presenter to the media will be award-winning international journalist Alex Newman, who will discuss the weaponization of religion to push scientific alarmism. So please click on the provided link to make whatever donation you can. We are gaining control of that momentum, and we cannot let up. And if you doubt for an instant that Church Militant is not the leader in spearheading pushback and change against a corrupt hierarchy complicit in the phony environment claims, as well as the horrors of illegal immigration, well, just look for yourself at how the powerhouse politically conservative media are starting to pay attention to our message.
So even as the U.S. gets involved in one war after another around the world, the proxy war in Ukraine against Russia, we can expect that we'll be involved in Israel. We're already marching a blockade there with our aircraft carriers and naval fleet. Soon there will likely be boots on the ground. We're watching China and its aggression toward Taiwan. The military-industrial complex, of course, will want to enrich themselves and empower themselves at the behest of the Zionist murderous control factor, but the traitors in the Biden regime remain steadfast in their determination to keep our borders completely open at all costs. You know, the one essential duty of the United States military is to protect our country against physical invasion and to protect our citizens against any harm that might come as a result of her invasion, but they aren't doing that. But they aren't doing it alone. America's open border isn't just a product of neglect by the Department of Homeland Security. This isn't just incompetence. No, this is also the product of a whole web of fake charities and nonprofits that are ideologically obsessed with flooding the third world into America. It's absolutely intentional. It's orchestrated. Sadly, many of these charities wear the mantle of supposed Christianity. All along the U.S.-Mexico border, so-called Catholic charities are enabling a vast human trafficking apparatus. You may have donated to them. You may have seen their ads on television. And of course, because you're human, you want to help other humans. But these so-called Catholic charities are actually aiding cartels and human smugglers as they funnel people into the country. While the cartels get these people to the border, it typically falls to these Christian charities to then transport illegal immigrants, including children, to every corner of America in the name of supposed humanitarianism. And incredibly, they get taxpayer money for much of this work. Michael Voris knows a lot about this. He's an Emmy Award-winning investigative journalist, senior executive producer at Church Militant, and the author of the book Militant, Resurrecting Authentic Catholicism. His latest work has been fighting to expose the way that his church has been twisted toward the left's ends. He's in Washington, D.C. today, right now, to interview several officials about this atrocious state of affairs, and he joins us now live from D.C. Michael, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me on, Stu. I appreciate the opportunity.
We've seen so much footage of children being escorted around by people who are not their parents. It's presumed that, of course, then they're moved to the interior of the country, and God only knows what happens to them. So maybe you can help us to understand.
Sure. You have to really go back in 40, 50, 60 years to understand what's happened here. The S.T.B, the Conference of Catholic Bishops in America, was begun essentially under the auspices, the ideological auspices of Saul Alinsky. The CCHD, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, all of that, which has created this massive push towards a false notion, according to Catholic teaching, a false notion, a perverted understanding of Catholic teaching with social justice. When the bishops and all of their little subgroups, Catholic Charities, Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Campaign for Human Development, the list is endless, figured out that, they can put together a lobbying effort and come up here to the Hill and all of a sudden start drawing down first tens of millions and then hundreds of millions and now billions of dollars for so-called humanitarian relief and effort and helping people and the gospel mandate and look at the poor immigrants and all of that. They have opened the floodgates, because what many people don't understand is, how do all these big giant migrant caravans get to the border? That's the work of Catholic Relief Services, which is more of an international operation inside the church. But once they get to the border, then the domestic part of the church takes over and begins, as you correctly said, bringing them in, and they do everything with them. They ship them around, they give them phones, paper, money, put them on flights, buses, trains, planes, everything. We were down in McAllen, Texas, about almost 2 years ago, and everything we heard on the ground there from people who were trying to fight this is that Catholic Charities is essentially the travel agency for illegal immigrants. They have collected hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in just the past couple of years through all of their ancillary agencies. It's not just one agency. And also troubling is that many of these illegal immigrants that they have, and they move to these various parts of the country, they're cooperating, Catholic Charities is cooperating with other groups that then sign them up and register them as Democratic voters. And you're thinking, could you come up with a more brilliant idea to completely undermine the entire republic? You're draining billions of dollars in a massive, debt environment. Congress can't even decide on, how they should even function financially. And here you are draining billions of dollars away. We've been interviewing a couple congressmen at our trip here, and they are mad. And one of the congressmen shared with us that they were talking about all of this from an appropriations committee point of view with Congressman Jim Jordan. And Jim Jordan said, well, hold on a second, said to them, wait a minute, this is also a judiciary committee hearing issue as well. And Congressman Lance Gooden of Texas and Tom Tiffany also of Texas, and a few others have signed letters to the bishops, to Catholic Charities, everybody saying, we want an accounting of what you have done with the people's money. And they get the middle finger back. They either get no response, or they get this, charge that, you're being slanderous or anti-Catholic or whatever like that. I'm Catholic. Both of the congressmen so far we've interviewed are not Catholic. They are not anti-Catholic. They are anti-Catholic bishop corruption, just like we are, and I'm pretty sure most of your audience and you are as well. This has nothing to do with theology. This has nothing to do with the gospel mandate. This has nothing to do with helping the poor. It has everything to do with getting billions of dollars of government taxpayer money just flowing into your coffers, bishops. That's what it is. And, there's another angle of this also that has come out, is that the whole border situation now, that geographically has become so saturated with this corruption and essentially, it is essentially an open border, that the drug cartels have now figured out, hey, wait a minute, there's a buck to be made here. So Catholic Charities is so insinuated into every single part of this illegal immigration thing that many of the drug cartel members themselves now are posing as Catholic Charities and are taking kids into the child sex trafficking rings here in America, and they're doing it under the cover of Catholic Charities, pretending they're Catholic Charities. And that's not coming from me. That's coming from the chair of the Michigan GOP, Christina Caramo, who made that announcement at the annual Mackinac conference just last week, that this is what's going on. That border is an absolute disaster. Human speaking, financial speaking, crime speaking. There is not a single box you could not check that says that border needs to be shut down, and the people who have done this and encouraged it through all of their own private agendas and getting rich and their ideological flooding of immigrants into the country to destabilize it politically, all of that needs to be shut down. All I can say is I hope it's not a question of too late, but the congressmen we've spoken to so far, they are, well, since we are sort of talking about Catholic thing here, I'll say it, they are mad as hell at what's going on. And there's sort of two routes. They want to have them in front of them, subpoena them, demand they answer questions under oath. And while that is one leg, the other one is they just simply want to say, we're going to cut off the funding. And they've already begun that discussion here. And obviously nothing's going on the Hill right now. So the speaker, chaos is settled. But once that's settled, they get back to business. One of the congressmen, Lance Gooden, told us, yep, this is going to be very short order before we get to this. We can bring them up here and say, hey, tell us what's going on. We want to know, give us an accounting, show us the documents, stop calling me, a slanderer and a liar. Just give me the documents. And if I'm wrong, then I'll apologize. In the meantime, while that little war is going on, the real one is going to be, they're just going to vote to, end the funding for not just Catholic Charities, other NGOs also, but Catholic Charities is the one that gets the most amount of money. And it is their network. It is their network far flung around the country. The hiring of these private charter planes to fly 50, 80, 100 immigrants at a shot into airports that are closed down in the dead of the night all over the country. That's the work they're engaged in. And we have no idea. Nobody has any idea where these people go. There are millions of illegal immigrants who have come across just since Joe Biden took the oath of office. Notice how I phrased that. Took the oath of office, and nobody knows where they are. They're here, they're there, they move around, they ship around. There's no terrorists in there anywhere. There's no problem with national security. You've got an illegal immigrant population that collectively is bigger than the population of 12 states, and that's insane. That's how you just write the death warrant, sign the death warrant on an entire country.
Yeah. We here at this program don't have any faith in the United States government or the process that happens on the Hill there. We think a lot of it is fake and it's all for show. It's a big movie that we're all watching. And so we're not going to hold our breath on any of these congressional inquiries or hearings or anything like that. But what we can say here is that it's very obvious that Catholic Charities has engaged in criminal activity, and they're doing it, and they're doing it knowingly under the guise of being a Christian, entity. And so what they're doing is they're pulling the wool over the eyes of Americans who will then donate to their cause on top of the taxpayer dollars that are being flooded into their organization by the U.S. government corporate crime syndicate. And then they're knowingly participating in introducing young children into the sex trafficking business. I mean, what can the people do right now if we are not relying on the fake government? What can the people do right now to make sure that we hold Catholic Charities and other NGOs like them accountable?
I don't think you. I don't want to say that these. I don't want to give the impression that these congressmen are just all sort of theater. I mean, I sitting talking with them off the record, on the record. They seem genuinely concerned, and I don't want to cast aspersion or doubt on their. Now, whether that will catch fire on the Hill itself, well, that would remain to be seen. But
if there's one thing that Congress should do right now, it should be to close this border to get us out of everywhere else and to shut down human and child sex trafficking. I mean, this is probably the biggest epidemic, the biggest murder scheme, for the biggest racket for sex. I mean, we're selling children into slavery. If they're going to do anything, it should be to get involved with this and to do it immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems to be very. You just look at the great box office success of Sound of Freedom. This is an issue that it doesn't really take an awful lot of brain power to understand. You've got a vast open pool of people there, young children there, a pool of essentially babies, and you take them, you kidnap them, they can't defend themselves, and they push them into this whole sex trafficking market. And I think on the one level, what can we do? First of all, I think you have to understand that while, yes, that this is billions of dollars in federal tax money, all of these organizations are also taking money from the states. Notice I'm going to start getting very local here. They go from the states down to the counties, even down to the cities. I can't remember if it was Austin or San Antonio. I forgot my research. I think it was San Antonio.
They even go to your local Walmart during Christmas time when they're ringing a bell and asking for your quarters.
Sure. I mean,
don't give them any. Don't give them any.
Don't give them anything. And if you're a Catholic sitting in the pews, once or twice a year, up comes an envelope, to put money in with, the pictures, of course, of, little children with, flies on their face and starving and all of that. And it's like, Catholic Charities, oh, please help the poor and blah, 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 blah. You need to go to your pastor and say, why are you putting this in the pews? I mean, it's got to be hit on a ground level. Yes, I understand that this is, if you're able to pull down the reins here in D.C., there'd be massive change right away. And, they're going to have to answer to God why they don't care about children being raped and sold off into slavery and everything else all over the world. But on a local level, go to your pastor. Why can't 20, 30, 40 of you and whatever, if you're a Catholic, go to the chancery and say, you need to stop this right now. Stop it. You need to come out and say something. You're one of the bishops who votes in favor of this stuff. You won't, and you just got to blacken their eyes. Yeah. You got to blow them up. And I don't mean that physically. I'm talking about in the sense of like, not let them get away with this. Blow them up. Be a major headache for them nonstop. That's not true of just Catholic stuff. That's also true of, the Lutherans have a big play in this also. I can't remember which Lutheran branch it is, but anyway, one of them has a great big play in all of this as well. You got to get local. That's where you're going to be able to, they don't want to put up with you. Yeah. So if anything, they'll just say, I don't want anything to do with this. But
the bottom line here is that Catholic Charities is aiding in child sex trafficking. And that's the big,
absolutely.
They're
creating the environment in which that can happen.
Well,
it's disgusting.
Well, the amount of work that you're doing on it is extremely commendable, especially, you're calling out your own church. You're a Catholic who really has a real faith, and you care about humans and children, and we do too. So we're on the battlefield with you, and we appreciate you bringing it to the attention of our audience. Come back again soon and tell us all about your victories. Michael Voris, thank you so much.